Hey everyone, it's Lexi. So in today's video, I'll be sharing with you the top 5 books that I read this winter. So the way this video will be structured is that I go over all the books that I read over the months of December, January, and February, and at the end, in no particular order, I'll discuss the books that kind of were the standouts of this season. So without further ado, let's get started. Starting off with December, I first read Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher, which I gave a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The audiobook for A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas, which I gave a 3 out of 5 stars. The audiobook for The Wood at Midwinter by Susanna Clarke, which I gave a 1 out of 5 star. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and Prince Caspian, which I also listened to on audiobook by C.S. Lewis, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars and a 3 out of 5 stars. The audiobook for The Romanoff Sisters by Helen Rappaport, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. And lastly, Downton Abbey, the grand finale, the official film companion, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars as well. Moving on to January, I first read The Beautiful Ones by Sylvia Morena Garcia, which I gave a 3 out of 5 stars. The Look by Michelle Obama, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. The Demon of Unrest by Eric Lawson, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. A Resistance of Witches by Morgan Ryan, which I gave a 5 out of 5 stars too. I listened to the audiobooks for Cinder and Scarlet by Marissa Meyer, which I gave a 4 and a 3 out of 5 stars. The Curious History of Irish Dogs by David Blake Knox, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. And lastly, I picked up Pearly Everlasting by Tammy Armstrong, which I gave a 3 out of 5 stars. Moving on to February, I first read Cress in Winter by Marissa Meyer, which I gave a 5 out of 5 stars and a 4 out of 5 stars. And lastly, I read The Hallmarked Man by Robert Galbraith, which I gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars. First up, I have The Look by Michelle Obama. I was so excited for this book to come out. I just really love Michelle Obama. I really much idolize her, and so this one was really interesting, a little bit different than some of her memoirs, but it does talk about her time as First Lady. Basically, the premise of this book is that it talks about how she felt like when she was First Lady, or even when Barack was kind of campaigning, no one really knew her, and how the media portrayed her, how people really got to kind of, see her. Was a lot of it kind of boiled down to what she was wearing, how she looked, all those things. And so how she's like, I can't control what people think when they look at me and stuff like that, or they only seem to talk about what I'm wearing. I can't control that, but what I can control is how I wear and what statements, what things how do I want to use my look essentially to bring awareness to certain topics, or support, smaller businesses of POC companies and all those things like that. So it kind of talked about how she kind of used that for kind of the American public to really get to know her. And so I would say this is more like picture book. There is some writing. She talks about some of her team, how they, especially kind of in the beginning, it was kind of finding what worked for her, finding her team, and how they wanted to, again, kind of pivot from what she was wearing. If people were going to be talking about what she was wearing, how can they use that to their advantage? How can they bring light to things that are important to her and things like that? So there are pictures of some of her looks and all these things here, how much planning kind of went into these things. So it was really interesting. I'm not someone who's very fashion forward, but it was really interesting to kind of see how she kind of felt like she was kind of put into a mold and she had to conform to that. And now she's very much I want to wear whatever I want and I don't care what people think. And so I really enjoyed that. This one is also, I was able to get a signed copy as well, which is really exciting. This is going to be one of my prized possessions. And like I said, overall it was just really interesting. Everything that I hear about her, as I learn more about her, I just get more and more respect for her. So this one was a delight to read. Next, I feel like this is the obvious choice just based on the books and the ratings that I talked about. This one is A Resistance of Witches by Morgan Ryan. I love this one. It was one of the first books that I read this year in 2026, and I could not put it down. I felt like 2025 just in general, in like just life, and also my reading was just kind of a meh year. So I was really excited to kind of start the year with a book that was so engaging. Like I said, I haven't been this engrossed and engaged in a novel where I couldn't put it down, or I was looking forward to every time that I would get to read it. So it really kind of got that love for reading, hence why I got so many books read in January. So this one was fantastic. It basically, I think also because it combines two of my favorite genres, which are historical fiction and fantasy. But basically the premise of this story is that it takes place during World War II, and historically witches of England have very much kept separate from like English society. They kind of live in the shadows, they don't interfere with anything. But the headmistress of the main, I guess, like witches school of the UK, offers her services to Churchill, and so the witches over World War II are helping the war effort for the Allies. And so our main character in this one is kind of working those war efforts, but when some things go wrong, she's kind of forced onto a new path. But basically what her kind of skill is as a witch is that she can kind of touch objects and see the history, see where it's at, like a seer almost for objects. And so they are looking for this, dark, mystical book that has kind of been lost, but basically it has very dark magical spells that the Nazis are obviously trying to find as well, so there's kind of that stuff. But I really love this. Like I said, it was fantastic. I was just so encaptured by this story, and the characters are really three-dimensional. They're well fleshed out. I really much I cared for so many of them, like all of the characters in this, and it was just action-packed. I couldn't put it down, and sometimes too it was like heartbreaking. So I think this is a debut too, so I'm really excited for more of this, what this author has in store. It was really great and fantastic. So like I said, if you're looking, that is Willow laying down, but if you're looking for a unique read, I highly recommend this one. Honestly, it blew me away. So over the holiday season, I got really obsessed with puzzles, to the point where even now, I'm just obsessed. Even on my when I was on a winter break for work and I had time off, I had to set timers for how long I would let myself puzzle, because I would puzzle for 4 hours, emerge bleary-eyed and not knowing what time it is. So I had to set timers. But what I kind of found worked well with kind of puzzling was listening to audiobooks. So I had a really big audiobook kick, and I do really enjoy nonfiction as an audiobook. So this is one I've had on my shelf for a while, and I was like, you know what, this is the perfect opportunity to read it. And it is The Romanoff Sisters by Helen Rappaport. This kind of talks about the four Romanoff sisters and how they are very much kind of grouped together. It was always their younger brother Alexei, the next the heir, and then the girls were always just kind of clumped together through history and also in their lives as well, where we don't really know a lot about their personality. But this kind of talks about each of their upbringings, their different personalities, what they were up to, kind of ultimately leading to their untimely demise. But this book, I'll show you, is basically from here is all references. So the book includes a lot of letters that they wrote, diary entries, all the things that could be kind of obtained through the historical record. So it really kind of gives you an idea of who these, girls were, what made them different, what were their different personalities like. And it was really, interesting to see that. I think I remember, obviously I watched the cartoon Anastasia. That was my favorite movie as a kid. But I, remember learning about this period in history, and it's really upsetting because what happens, what the kind of end tragedy is, and at the end of the day, they were kids, they weren't involved in anything, and the violence of their final few minutes on Earth is horrendous for that. So I felt this sense it was actually giving me severe anxiety, and I would have to take breaks listening to it, because you just you're waiting for the pin to drop, and there's they had opportunities to get out, and so it gave me a lot of anxiety. But the author does a really fantastic job. It doesn't feel like you're reading a history book, rather it's just kind of a novelization of their life, and it includes direct quotes, all that stuff. So I really loved this. Like I said, despite it giving me really, you know, intense anxiety and like just like unease, I still really enjoyed it. I think it's a really, you know, tragic part of history. So it is upsetting to kind of, you know, read about, and especially because they had like their whole lives ahead of them. You can't help but think, you know, what if they made this choice, you know, how things would have been different. So it was really interesting. She also has another book as well, that's The Last Day of the Romanovs, which I think talks about more, like what I enjoyed this too is it's kind of a little bit more glosses over their final moments, because I think her other book, the kind of The Last Days of Romanovs, goes more into detail. So I'm happy it kind of was a little bit not the primary focus. So I think like eventually I want to read her next one, or like her, I think this is the first one, that goes more into depth about their time, kind of under house arrest, all those things and all that, but I think I need to be in a good mind place. But if you're looking for an interesting historical, like, nonfiction read, this one was really well done. Next, I have this chonker of a book, which is The Hallmarked Man by Robert Galbraith. This is the newest installment in the Cormoran Strike series. And oh my god, you guys, I love this one. My sister and I are big fans of the series. She read this book towards the end of 2025. She's like, when you read this, you have to let me know so we can talk about it. But this one was really interesting. Basically, the premise of this series is that we follow Cormoran Strike and his partner Robin, who run kind of a private detective agency. And in this case, they're approached by this woman who had just given birth, and she thinks her partner is the man who was, you know, found murdered in a silver vault, and he was not identified, and she's convinced that this is her partner, and she wants them to try to figure out, you know, who this man is and to confirm that it is, you know, the father of her child. So it kind of goes from there. There's a lot of like, I guess like side quests basically with this one, in that there are red herrings, they go down paths that, you know, lead to dead ends, all that stuff. But really what the forefront is, because I really like the last like 80 pages of this book, I couldn't put it down. Like, it was so intense, like the climactic ending, all of the little threads and pieces and clues coming together was so well constructed. But I think really what I really like about these books, despite them being so complex and the big reveal at the end and how everything is perfectly woven together to kind of create that big crime book finale, what really at the forefront of this series is the relationship between Cormoran and Robin, and, you know, if they won't, you know, will they, won't they, you know, missed timings, all these things. And I said to my sister, I'm like, if they don't kiss at the end of this one, like, I'm gonna throw my Kindle across the room. But this one, like, the ending, the last chapter, I did not see coming. Like, it completely shocked me. It was completely, like, my jaw was on the ground. And so I'm so excited. We're both really excited for the next installment, because I've heard it picks up 5 minutes after this, like, this happens in the storyline. So I really enjoyed this. Like, my only complaint was that it was, like, a little bit too long. But overall, I really enjoyed it. And lastly, I have another nonfiction as well, and it is The Curious History of Irish Dogs by David Blake Knox. And this is a book that I ended up getting on my honeymoon, and I even have like the bookshop bookmark here, as you can see. But basically this one is kind of talks about the kind of the 9 breeds of dogs that are native to Ireland. It talks about their history, how they kind of came to be. A lot of them are kind of tied to, you know, politics, changes in like societal, you know, politics, all these things, how some became popular during the revolution and some were seen as bougie. So like how these like trends in Irish history, or how these kind of changes in Irish history led to these trends with the different dogs. And it was really interesting. Like, you don't really think about how a breed comes to be and how a lot of it can be tied to, you know, politics or societal tension and all these things. So it was really interesting to me to learn about that. And the last chapter just talks about kind of humans' relationship with dogs. That got me teary-eyed. I'm a big dog person. I grew up with dogs my entire life, and just that connection, like, it got me teary-eyed, talking about how we're there for all their life and we watch them age gracefully, and it was just making me, like, you know, cry a little bit. But this one was really interesting, something a little bit different. but I really enjoyed kind of learning about these different dog breeds and all those things. So it's a little bit different. Like I said, I just found this in a shop in Ireland. So I was like, this is perfect. And I wanted kind of a little bit something different as well, like a little bit of a shorter book for January. And this book was really a lot of fun and I learned a lot. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below about some of the books that you read over the kind of winter months and which ones really stood out to you. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.